I found a message on my wife's phone that read, "I can't wait until we do it without oil." At first, I thought it was some kind of weird joke, maybe a typo, maybe even a recipe gone wrong. But deep down, something twisted inside my chest. My wife had never been the type to joke in riddles. Those words weren't meant for me. And that single thought felt like someone had poured gasoline into my lungs and lit a match. If you've ever had that moment where your stomach drops, your throat locks, and your whole body goes cold in a single second, you'll know exactly what I mean. I sat there in silence, staring at the glowing screen, replaying that bizarre phrase over and over. Without oil. It didn't make sense, but I knew it wasn't innocent to be why the way, before I dive deeper. If you like stories where the truth unravels slowly and revenge takes a sharp, clever turn, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this one ends. That I put her phone back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront her that night. She was in the shower, humming, steam rolling out from under the door. Her voice sounded too light, too free, like someone who was carrying a secret thrill. I remember watching the steam curl into the hallway and thinking, God, is she scrubbing someone else off her skin? That night in bed, she turned away from me. No kiss, no touch, just the soft glow of her phone lighting up her face while I stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open. Every buzz of a notification felt like a punch to the ribs. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe it really was some inside joke or code I didn't understand. But in my gut, I already knew. Something was broken. The next morning, she floated into the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Hair damp, cheeks flushed, wearing a fitted top she hadn't pulled out in months. She poured coffee, kissed me lightly on the cheek, her lips cold, distant, and smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. I watched her sip slowly, her hand trembling just slightly, and I wondered, was it guilt or excitement? Later that week, I noticed more. She had started dressing differently. Not the casual sweatpants and oversized tees she used to live in at home, but skirts that hugged her curves, blouses with just one button, too many undone. When I asked, she laughed it off, just feeling like a change. But the change wasn't for me. I could feel it in my bones. One evening, I came home early and found her standing in front of the mirror, adjusting her neckline, spraying a perfume I'd never smelled before. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, I was just experimenting." She said it with a nervous laugh, but her eyes darted to her phone buzzing on the counter. I caught a glimpse of a name. Just an initial. Sita. She grew colder with me, warmer with the world outside. At night, she rolled over quickly, claiming exhaustion. But in the mornings, she left the house with a glow on her skin, a spark I hadn't seen in months. I knew that look. That was the look of a woman who felt wanted. I told myself maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the stress of work was twisting my brain. But then came the small slip-ups. She came home late one night, her hair slightly messed up, blouse wrinkled in ways that didn't look like work. When I asked where she'd been, she smiled with a softness that didn't belong to me and said, "Just with the girls." Except, I checked. The girls weren't with her. I didn't have proof yet, not solid, undeniable proof. But the message on her phone haunted me. Without oil, the strange glow in her eyes, the sudden changes. It all stacked up like bricks in a wall closing in on me. And the worst part? The person she was talking to, the one she was hiding, was someone I knew. Someone close. I didn't know it yet, but the betrayal waiting for me was deeper and sharper than I could have ever imagined. The next few days felt like walking barefoot through glass. Every step small, every cut invisible until it stung. I told myself to act normal. So I did the most normal thing I could think of: Sunday brunch with our friends. We met at a place with sunlit windows and a menu that tried too hard. She showed up in a breezy dress I'd never seen, the fabric hugging her like a secret. My best friend, Mark, was already there, waving us over with that easy grin of his, the kind that had gotten us both out of trouble back in college. New perfume. He asked her, casual, like he was pointing out the weather. She smiled and looked down, almost shy. Just a sample. I tried to catch her eye, but she was busy swirling lemonade, ice clinking against the glass like a metronome for my heartbeat. The table fell into its usual jokes and stories, but every laugh felt half a second too late for me. When the waiter brought out a salad, she tapped the dressing with her fork and told the server, "No oil." Everyone else missed it. I didn't. She met my gaze for a flicker of a second, then looked away. After brunch, We split. Mark slapped my shoulder and said we should grab a beer midweek. Old times, no spouses, and something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. Not because I didn't trust him. Mark had been my anchor for a decade, but because lately, every harmless thing felt like a clue staring me down. That night, she said she was taking a late yoga class. I know better than to ask for proof. Instead, I drove to the old pier, parked by the dark water, and just sat with the engine off. The air tasted like salt and rain. I watched couples wander by, a hand brushing a sleeve, a head leaning on a shoulder, small gestures that didn't need words. When my phone buzzed, it was a photo from her. An empty studio, soft lamps glowing, mats lined up like folded prayers. She still sent me things, little breadcrumbs of normal. But the picture felt staged, like a scene reset between takes. She came home flushed, hair tied high, a few wisps escaping at her neck. When she reached for a glass in the cupboard, the hem of her hoodie lifted just enough to show a thin red line on her ribcage, a mark from a too tight strap or from hands. I looked away first. She noticed that I noticed. A silence grew between us, but neither of us watered it with anything honest. Midweek, I stopped by the hardware store for screws and left with a ladder I didn't strictly need. Our neighbor, Chris, saw me hauling it out of the truck and offered to help. He's the kind of guy who calls everyone boss and knows every sports score by heart. As we mounted it in the garage, my wife pulled in, music still humming in her car. She waved, then turned the volume down, but not all the way. I caught the chorus of a song I recognized from Mark's old playlists, the ones we used to blast on road trips. It was probably nothing. Lately, everything was probably nothing until it wasn't. That evening, she stood barefoot in the kitchen, cutting tomatoes, the blade clicking softly against the board. "I'm trying no-oil dressings," she said without looking up. "Health kick." "Since when?" I asked. She shrugged one shoulder. "Since now." The smell of fresh basil drifted up, and I remembered the text again, those exact words. I wanted to ask her who she joked with, who laughed with her in a language I no longer spoke. Instead, I took plates out of the cabinet and pretended not to notice the faint smudge at the edge of her collarbone, a soft pink like a whisper against skin. It could have been anything. That was the worst part. How easily anything could be explained away if you were desperate enough to keep your life intact. Later that night, laundry hummed in the background while she took a call on the balcony. Her voice was low, friendly, threaded with a little laughter. I couldn't make out the words, only the rhythm of comfort. In the dryer, I found a crumpled napkin from a quiet bar across town, the kind with velvet booths and no TVs. On the back, someone had doodled a tiny wrench, an inside joke, a nod to my job, or a coincidence left by a bored bartender. The ink bled where heat met moisture. The mark was still there. Thursday, Mark texted, "Beer tonight?" "I'll pick the spot." Chill that I told him I was wiped and suggested next week. He sent a thumbs up and a joke about me getting old. We'd been reading each other's minds for years, but lately our messages felt like translations of something we used to say more easily. That same night, my wife asked if I could fix the light in the hallway. I stood on the new ladder while she steadied it from below, one hand on the rung, the other on my ankle. Her touch used to settle me. Now it carried static. "I like this angle," she teased. "Makes me feel tall." I laughed on autopilot, the sound thin and brittle. The bulb flickered, then warmed to a steady glow, and in that yellow light, I saw her watching me like I was a memory she was trying to keep polite that we went to bed early. She curled on her side, facing the window, and pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Good night," she whispered. "Night." I stared at the ceiling again, tracing the faint cracks in the drywall. Picture frames from our happier years hanging in straight lines like alibis. I thought about all the suspects I'd lined up in my head. The neighbor with the strong handshake, the trainer with the too bright smile, some nameless coworker who knew her better than I did lately. Every guess felt wrong and right at the same time. The truth was hiding in plain sight. I could feel it breathing in the room with us, at 1:13 a.m. Her phone lit the darkness. Just a glow, just a name I couldn't see, just a brief vibration that buzzed against the nightstand like a nervous tick. She didn't reach for it. Maybe she didn't have to. Maybe she already knew what it said. When sleep finally found me, it wasn't rest. It was a long hallway with lights that turned on a second too late, just after I'd passed. And at the end of it, a door. On the other side, laughter, familiar, male, warm. The kind of laugh that used to pull me back from cliffs. I woke up with my heart racing and my fists clenched, the echo still in my ears. Morning came with coffee and clear skies. She hummed as she wiped the counter, a tune I hadn't heard in years. Big weekend? I asked. She paused, then smiled without showing teeth. Maybe. I nodded like that was enough. The truth was stepping closer, not with a crash, but on quiet feet, like a friend letting himself in with a key I forgot I'd given him. The weekend arrived dressed like a promise and left like a thief. Saturday morning, she suggested we hit the farmer's market. Her idea, not mine, which should have felt normal, except everything normal now felt curated. She wore a denim jacket over a thin white tee that caught the light in a way I didn't remember. We drifted through stalls, and she lingered at the olive oil stand, sniffing little cups like perfume samples before handing them back with a polite smile. "I'm cutting this out," she told the vendor, almost apologetic. "No oil." The words snapped like a dry twig in my chest, a TA flower booth. She tucked a single peony behind her ear and asked if it looked silly. It didn't. It looked like she belonged to a different afternoon, one I wasn't invited to. On the way home, she hummed to a song I couldn't place, the melody rising and falling like a memory that wasn't mine. When we pulled into the driveway, she checked her reflection in the visor mirror and dabbed her lips with the corner of a napkin. "I'll go see my sister later," she said. "She needs help sorting boxes." She didn't have a sister in the city. I nodded anyway. I went into the garage to pretend the toolbox needed reorganizing. The ladder, my needless new purchase, leaned in the corner, an accusation made of aluminum. I wiped down wrenches, nested sockets, lined everything up by size. Order makes a man feel bigger than chaos. While I worked, Mark texted, "You free to help me move a couch this afternoon? I'll buy pizza." I typed sure and deleted it. Typed can't today and deleted that too. Finally sent, "Maybe tomorrow?" He replied with a thumbs up and a joke about my back giving out before my 30s were truly over. Around noon, she came into the garage with 2 iced coffees, condensation drawing slow tears down the plastic. "Peace offering," she said, holding one out. She perched on the workbench, crossing one leg over the other, the hem of her skirt sliding up just enough to show a pale stripe of thigh. The sort of accident that isn't always an accident. She watched me tighten a bolt that didn't need tightening and asked if I remembered the night we painted this garage. I did. We'd been sloppy, laughing, both of us smudged with gray. She'd left a print of her palm high on the wall where she'd jumped and pressed her hand for fun. The smudge was still there, a ghost. She followed my gaze, smiled, and then looked away quickly, like the memory caught her off guard. In the afternoon, rain rolled in, a soft curtain that blurred the neighborhood into watercolor. She said she'd head out to her sister's before it got worse. I watched from the front window as she walked to her car, hair pinned up, jacket undone. She paused, checked her phone, then, with a quick glance toward the house, slipped behind the wheel. The wipers beat time as she pulled away. I didn't tail her. That's not who I am, or at least I told myself that. Instead, I went to the old diner where Mark and I used to nurse burnt coffee and ridiculous plans. The place hadn't changed. The same jukebox, the same cracked vinyl seats, the same waitress who called everyone Han. I ordered pie I wasn't hungry for and stared at the door, half expecting him to wander in out of habit. He didn't. On my way out, I bumped into our neighbor Chris, who was carrying a bag of takeout big enough for 2. "Big night," he grinned. "No oil, extra spice." He meant food. I knew he meant food. Still, the phrase crawled under my skin and set up camp. We chatted about trivial things, trash day, the pothole down the block, while my mind ran laps around that small, stupid message that had detonated my peace. Back home, I tossed my jacket over a chair and felt something crinkle in the pocket. A place card, the kind they put on tables at quiet lounges. Embossed initials at the top, C and Company. A doodle on the back, another small wrench, neater this time, like someone had practiced the shape. For a second I thought I'd grabbed the wrong jacket, but it was mine, frayed cuff, grease speck on the hem. I tried to remember when I'd last worn it. Maybe Mark had borrowed it. He did that sometimes when nights ran colder than planned. Maybe he'd tucked the card there and forgot. Maybe. The word rang hollow. She came home late. Hair a little looser than when she left. Jacket fully buttoned now as though the evening had asked for modesty after all. "Boxes," she said simply, slipping her shoes off by the door. "So many boxes." She smelled like rain and something light I couldn't name. She went straight to the shower, and the water murmured through the pipes like voices in another room. Sunday morning, she surprised me with pancakes, golden and thin. No butter, she said, sliding a plate toward me. Just fruit. She watched me take a bite as if my approval mattered. It tasted like a truce we hadn't negotiated. Her phone buzzed once on the counter, a gentle nudge. She flipped it face down without looking. We took a drive after breakfast. Windows cracked to let the damp out. The city wore sunlight like a cure. She pointed out a shop that had just opened, vintage jackets, hand-stitched boots, a sign in the window that said honest repairs. She laughed at the name. We should go, she said, and then caught herself. I mean, you'd like it. That tiny stumble, the wee shrinking to you, wasn't lost on me. A red light. She reached across and fiddled with the radio, landing on a station that played older tracks. A chorus jumped out, one I recognized from the road trips Mark and I took in summers that felt longer. She drummed her fingers on her knee in time, not quite smiling. Haven't heard this in years, she murmured. My mouth went dry. It's just a song, I told myself. Songs belong to everyone. We swung by the store on the way home. In the aisle with condiments, she ran her finger along labels until she reached a row of jars. Tahini, mustard, vinegars. New staples, she said, half to herself. Clean. Simple. Her fingertip tapped the glass in a slow rhythm that sounded like the ticking of a bomb only I could hear. That afternoon, Mark called. Not a text, an actual call, his voice warm and familiar. Rain check on that couch, he said. Turns out I don't need it moved. You around for the game later? Maybe, I said, hedging. What time? Kickoff's at 6. Swing by whenever. His voice held no strain, no secret. If anything, he sounded more like himself than he had in weeks. We hung up, and I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my phone, trying to read a truth in my own eyes. At 5:30, my wife emerged from the bedroom in a soft sweater and jeans. Hair down, lips unpainted like the early days. She looked young, familiar, and it hurt more than it should. Girls' night, she announced lightly. Movie and takeout. Don't wait up. I swallowed. Have fun. You too, she said. And for a fleeting second, I believed her. I drove to Mark's with no plan except not being in my house. His place smelled like cedar and old records. He had the game on low, a pizza box open, 2 beers sweating on the coffee table. Thought you'd bail, he said, tossing me the remote. You've been off. Yeah, I said. Been a weird week. He nodded, eyes on the screen. Tell me about it. We watched the first quarter in that easy silence men mistake for safety. He cracked a joke about our team's defense. I laughed in the right place. During halftime, he disappeared into the kitchen, and I wandered to the bookshelf, scanning old photos, college, fishing trips, my wedding day. In one frame, he was standing next to my wife at the reception, both of them laughing at something off camera, heads tipped back the same way. I'd seen the photo 100 times. It had never made my stomach twist before. Beer? He called. Yeah. My voice came out thin. He handed me a bottle and clinked his against it. To surviving adulthood, he grinned. He took a long drink, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and looked at me. You good, man? I opened my mouth, closed it. The truth sat between us like a third guest who hadn't decided whether to speak. I will be, I said finally. When I left, the night had settled into that deep quiet that feels heavier than noise. On the drive home, my phone buzzed once with a message from my wife. Don't forget to lock the back door. She never texted reminders like that. I pulled into the driveway and sat there, engine ticking as it cooled, eyes on the dark outline of our house. For a moment, I imagined a second set of footsteps in the hall, a laugh I knew too well, a hand on a doorknob turning with easy familiarity. Inside, the back door was already locked. A small thing, easy to miss, easy to explain. I stood there with my palm on the cool metal, listening to a house that suddenly felt crowded with quiet. Somewhere, behind the safe hum of our appliances and the slow drip of the bathroom faucet, I could hear the shape of a truth I wasn't ready to name. Monday hit like a slap. She left early for a team meeting, wearing a silk blouse I'd only seen at anniversaries. I made coffee, opened the pantry, and saw a new glass bottle. Chili vinegar labeled no oil blend. The phrase followed me like a shadow. At lunch, I met Mark. He picked a bar with low lights and clean tables, his style, not mine. You look wrecked, he said, half joking. I shrugged. He watched me too closely. When our wings arrived, he laughed at the grease and ordered his dry. No oil. The joke landed between us with a thud. Weekend good? He asked, quiet. I tipped my bottle toward him. Yours? Errands, he said. Fixed a lamp. Found my old road trip playlists. He grinned. Remember those summers? I did. Too well. He changed the subject fast, like he'd touched a hot coil. That night, my wife came home late. Hair damp, sweater soft. I offered a shoulder rub. She let me, but stayed rigid. Her skin smelled like citrus and rain. When my hand slid higher, she turned, kissed my jaw. Quick, careful, then said she was exhausted. In the bathroom mirror, a faint outline on her collarbone glowed and faded as she moved. Could have been nothing. I went to bed angry at myself for cataloging details like a clerk. Tuesday, the spare key was missing from the magnet under the grill. We hadn't used it in months. I replaced it and dusted the back knob with a thin smear of pencil graphite, the kind that vanishes with one touch. Not cameras, not spying, just a line I could see in the morning. Her phone chimed while she chopped cucumbers. A preview flashed. See tonight? She flipped its screen down and said, should we try a movie? Something light. I nodded. We watched half an hour. She laughed in the right places, checked the time twice, then stood. Early day tomorrow. In the kitchen, 2 clean wine glasses air-dried on a towel, though we'd used mugs. I said nothing. Wednesday, the graphite was gone. She texted at noon. Dinner out? I'll pick the place. The place was dim and new, with matte cutlery and people in dark denim. At the host's stand, a brass plaque read C and Company. My ribs tightened. Inside, the bartender drew a tiny wrench in the lemon twist, a cute flourish. My wife clocked it, smiled, and asked for the usual. I didn't know she had a usual here. Midway through the meal, she slipped to the restroom. A minute later, my phone buzzed with a voice note from her, sent by accident. Just muffled laughter and a whisper. No oil, promise. Then another voice, male, low, too quick to catch. The note cut off. She returned flushed and talked about redecorating the bedroom. Lighter curtains, better bulbs, a cleaner look. I said we could paint this weekend. She bit her lip. I might be busy. Thursday, game night at our friend's place. Charades. Someone pulled a card labeled tools. Mark grabbed it, grinned, and, without looking at me, mimed turning a wrench, then set an imaginary ladder. Everyone shouted answers, laughing. My wife clapped first. Their high five lingered half a heartbeat longer than it should have. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe. Later, while people cleaned up, I stepped onto the balcony for air. Through the glass, I saw her shoulder brush marks as they reached for the same bowl. He moved aside, open-palmed, like a man practiced in getting out of the way at just the right second. She smiled without teeth. The bowl didn't matter. The choreography did. Friday morning, she left a note on the counter. Out with the girls. Back late. Don't wait up. Lock the back door. She'd underlined back. I stood there, reread it, and felt the same cold as the first night. I worked a short job, said no to a beer with Mark, and drove home early on purpose. Inside, the air was warm, busy with recent movement. 2 glasses stood by the sink, lipstick on one, foam lace on the other from a beer brand only Mark drank. A hoodie lay half hidden under a chair. Our team's logo, his size. I picked it up. The pocket held a folded receipt from C and Company. Time-stamped 30 minutes AGO.M. Phone vibrated. A text from my wife. Movie starting. Don't wait up. Seconds later, a text from Mark. Long day. Crashing early. Rain check? I stared at the 2 messages, then at the hoodie in my hand. My heart thudded once, hard, like a door slamming. I walked to the back door. The new spare key was gone again. On the knob, the faintest smudge curved where a thumb would land, a crescent clean of graphite. I pressed my palm to the metal, felt the ghost of someone else's heat still there. I didn't scream. I didn't call. I set the hoodie on a chair, lined the 2 glasses side by side, and turned off every light but one. The house went quiet in a way that wasn't empty. It was listening, like I was. Somewhere between the clink of glass and the soft hum of the fridge, I heard a laugh I knew, tucked inside my memory like a knife in a velvet sleeve. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was circling the block, familiar with the route, waiting for the right moment to come home. Saturday started strange. She cooked breakfast, smiling, joking, acting lighter than she had in weeks. But her eyes betrayed her, tired, restless. I suggested we go to the lake, something we hadn't done in months. She brushed it off. I've got plans with the girls. Always the same girls, the ones I never seemed to meet. When she left, I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys. I wasn't tailing her to confront, just to see. 2 cars back, I followed until she pulled into a small boutique hotel downtown. She didn't go in right away. She sat in her car, scrolling her phone, checking the mirrors like she was waiting. A black SUV pulled up. A man got out. I couldn't see his face. Dark jacket, steady walk, too familiar in the way he carried himself. He leaned into her window. They exchanged quick words, and then both slipped inside. I gripped the steering wheel so hard it hurt. Why a hotel? Why here? My mind spun through names. The neighbor, a co-worker, maybe someone from the gym. I wanted to storm in, but something held me back. I needed more than suspicion. I needed certainty. Hours later, she came home glowing. Hair slightly undone, lips bare but flushed. She dropped her bag by the door and stretched. "The girls say hi," she said casually. I nodded, keeping my face blank. "At dinner," I tested her. "Why don't we invite some of your friends over? I'd like to finally meet them." She froze mid-bite. A split second of panic, then a quick smile. "They're shy and busy." Her voice cracked on busy. I didn't press, but the crack was enough. The next day, I pushed further. "What if we invite Mark over for dinner?" Her fork stopped halfway. "Mark? What?" "Because it's been a while," I said calmly. "Good to catch up." She twisted the napkin in her hand. "Fine. Invite him." When he arrived, everything looked normal. Too normal. Their smiles were measured, their movements careful. No accidental touches, no shared looks. It was as if they'd rehearsed the art of distance. Halfway through the meal, I leaned back casually. "Funny thing," I said. "I came across a phrase the other day, no oil. Weird, right?" The reaction was instant. She stuttered. Mark blinked. For the briefest moment, they glanced at each other, then back at me. She laughed too loudly. "What are you even talking about?" I smiled into my glass. "Just something I heard." Strange choice of words. I didn't know yet who that man at the hotel was. But I knew one thing for certain. The truth was closing in, and it was closer than either of them realized. Monday night, she came home later than usual. Hair damp, perfume lingering, the kind that doesn't come from a long day at the office. She set her bag down and kissed my cheek. Quick and distracted that I watched her move around the kitchen. She poured 2 glasses of water. Only one reached the table. The other sat untouched by the sink, lipstick faint on the rim. "Long day?" I asked. "Meetings," she said too fast. "Exhausting." I nodded, not showing what I noticed. Later, while she showered, I checked the pocket of her coat. A folded card fell out, embossed letters, C and Company. The same name I'd seen before. Inside, a small doodle, a wrench. My chest tightened. Again, no face, no name. Just hints. Enough to drive me insane. Tuesday, she was all sweetness, cooking dinner, asking about my work. Her smile looked practiced, like a mask glued on. I played along, calm, steady, while inside every nerve screamed at 1 point. Her phone buzzed on the counter. I saw the preview. "See tomorrow?" She flipped it face down without reading. "Who was that?" I asked lightly. "Work stuff." No hesitation. "Too clean." Wednesday evening, she claimed she had yoga. I drove past the studio on my way home. Lights were off, doors locked. My pulse hammered. I circled the block, parked across from the same hotel. Her car was there. This time I stayed. Watched. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. Half an hour later, I saw him. A man in a hooded jacket stepped out of the hotel lobby, moving fast. He paused, checked his phone, then disappeared into a black SUV. Minutes later, she followed, adjusting her blouse, glancing around like prey. She drove off in the opposite direction. I sat there in silence, hands trembling on the wheel. No clear face, no name, just pieces of a puzzle I couldn't yet finish. That night, in bed, she curled away from me, breathing steady, already asleep. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing. Every possibility felt like poison. The neighbor, a co-worker, even Mark, anyone could fit. I didn't know the truth yet. But I knew one thing. Whoever he wasn't careful enough. And sooner or later, he would slip, And when he did, I'd be ready. Thursday night, I decided to stop waiting. Watching, guessing, it wasn't enough. I needed them to trip. When she left for a late shift, I stayed home and slipped her phone into my pocket. Not to read, just to test. I left it on the table when she returned. She saw it instantly, froze, then forced a smile. Oh, I must have left it behind. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she picked it up. The next day, I planted another seed. While we had coffee, I casually said, I bumped into Chris yesterday. Funny guy. He mentioned seeing you near downtown. I didn't say hotel. I didn't need to. Her spoon clinked hard against the cup. He must have been mistaken, she said quickly. I just nodded. Saturday morning, I told her I'd be gone all day for work. Instead, I parked a block away from the house. At noon, a car pulled into our driveway. Dark SUV. My heart pounded, but I stayed low. I saw only a silhouette at the door. She stepped out, hugged him briefly, and led him inside. Curtains closed. I waited, every muscle screaming, until he left hours later. Still no face. Just broad shoulders, confident stride. Too many people could fit that outline. That evening, I set the table for dinner. I acted calm, even playful. We should host friends again, I said. Maybe invite Mark, maybe Chris. It's been too long. Her fork stopped. She glanced at me, lips pressed tight. Do we have to? I smiled. Why not? It'd be fun. She looked down at her plate. Silent. Later that night, while she slept, I pulled out a notepad and started writing names. Chris, a coworker. Mark. I circled each, then crossed them out, one by one. None fit perfectly, but one name lingered, refusing to be erased. Mark.it didn't make sense. My best friend. My brother in everything but blood. Still, the way he laughed at the wrong times, the way she stiffened when I mentioned him. The puzzle pieces leaned toward him. Even if I didn't want them to. I tore the page out, burned it in the sink, and watched the ashes scattered. If it was him, I needed proof. Real proof. No mistakes, because when I finally made my move, there would be no going back. Sunday morning, I played calm. Coffee, quiet talk, the mask of a normal husband. She bought it, too easily. That told me she was sure I was blind. That afternoon, I left a small note on the counter before going to work. It read, Dinner at C & Company, 7 p.m. Don't be late. No name, no signature. Just that. When I returned, the note was gone. She didn't mention it, but her eyes carried a sharp edge, like she was calculating. At 6:45, I parked across from the restaurant. A black SUV rolled up. She stepped out of her car, dressed carefully, checking her reflection in the glass. She lingered by the entrance, phone in hand. Minutes later, a man approached. Tall, confident stride. My gut tightened. He walked close enough that their shoulders brushed. She tilted her head, smiling like a woman who hadn't smiled at me in months. That I stayed in the car, hidden. She led him inside. I didn't follow. Not yet. Instead, I called a friend who worked near the place. Asked him to swing by, pretend he was passing, snap a quick picture of the two. Nothing obvious, just enough. He agreed. Half an hour later, I got the photo. Blurry, dim, but clear enough. Her face lit up, his hand hovering too close to her back. The man's face was turned away. Still not visible. My stomach twisted. Proof, but not enough. Not yet. The next day, I tested her again. Over breakfast, I said, Funny, someone told me they saw you downtown last night. At that new restaurant. Her spoon froze. Then she laughed, too high-pitched. Impossible. I was with the girls. Sure, I said smoothly. Must have been a mistake. That night I called Mark. Told him I wanted to grab a drink. His voice caught for half a second before he agreed. At the bar, he was restless, tapping his glass. You all right? I asked. Yeah, just tired. He avoided eye contact, laughed too loud at small jokes, checked his phone constantly. Every detail screamed guilt. But guilt of what? Business trouble? A secret fling? Or the one thing I couldn't yet say out loud? When I got home, she was waiting on the couch. How was it? She asked, casual. Good, I said. Mark's always the same. Her eyes flickered. A tiny shift, like a crack in glass. That I went to bed that night knowing two things. She was running out of lies. And he was running out of cover. The walls were closing in, and soon. There would be no escape for either of them. Friday night, I set the final trap. We were invited to a friend's house party, casual, small crowd. Perfect stage. I told her I might be late. She left early, dressed sharper than usual, too much perfume that I arrived an hour later. The moment I stepped inside, I saw it. Across the room, she stood near the bar, laughing, head tilted in that familiar way. And right beside her, Mark, my best friend. My chest turned to stone. I watched them from the doorway before either noticed me. His hand brushed her arm as he leaned in to whisper. She smiled, biting her lip. She didn't look like my wife. She looked like someone else entirely. I walked closer. Conversation froze. Mark's smile faltered, hers too. I poured myself a drink, calm, steady. Didn't expect to see you two so cozy, I said. They laughed nervously, too quick. We were just talking about old times, Mark muttered. Old times, I repeated, staring straight at him. The room felt smaller, the silence thicker. She tried to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Funny, I said loudly enough for others to hear. Old times never included hotel rooms downtown. Her face drained. Mark's jaw tightened. A couple of friends glanced over. Sensing tension, I pulled my phone from my pocket. On the screen, the blurry photo from C and Company. I placed it on the counter between us. You two really thought I wouldn't notice? Mark swallowed hard. She whispered, please, not here. I cut her off. No, here is perfect. Everyone always said we were like brothers, Mark. Guess brothers share everything, huh? Gasps rippled around the room. Someone dropped a glass. She covered her face with her hands, trembling. Mark looked like he wanted to vanish. I turned to the group. Sorry to ruin the party. Just thought you all should know who you're raising a glass with. And then I walked out. Calm. No shouting, no begging. Just the truth left hanging in the air like smoke. Outside, the cold air hit me, sharp and clean. My phone buzzed, her name lighting up the screen. I let it ring, then silenced it. The lie was dead. The mask was gone. And for the first time in months, I felt alive. The morning after the party, the silence in our house was deafening. She tried to talk, but I had no words left for her. Everything was said when I laid the truth out in front of everyone. Within a week, I met with a lawyer. Papers were drafted quickly. My finances secured, assets protected. I wasn't going to let her drag me down with her. When she realized I was serious, she begged, apologies, tears, promises. But promises mean nothing when they come too late. Mark tried calling too. First excuses, then guilt trips, then silence. He knew he was finished in my life. He lost me as a brother, and, soon after, his reputation among our circle. People talk. Secrets don't stay secret once the mask is ripped away. I moved into a new place. Small, clean mine. For the first time in months, I slept without grinding my teeth. No late-night phone buzz. No lipstick on glasses that weren't mine. Just peace. The strangest part? I wasn't broken. I wasn't even angry anymore. I felt lighter, stronger, like I'd carried a weight so long that I forgot how it felt to breathe without it. She ended up with nothing but the wreckage of her choices. Mark too. They deserved each other. And maybe they'll learn something from it. Maybe not. That's not my concern anymore. I've got new plans, new goals. My life isn't about betrayal now. It's about growth. About building something real for myself, by myself. And as for that night, when I exposed them in front of everyone, I don't regret it for a second. Oh, let me ask you, did I do the right thing? What would you have done in my place? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts. I've got plenty more stories you won't want to miss.